Today, we're diving into the life of King Jehoram of Judah. And let me tell you, it is a powerful story from the scriptures, one that really serves as this stark warning. The choices we make, well, they don't just define our own lives, they can build up or completely shatter the legacy we leave behind. It's a question that really makes you think, doesn't it? What are we building? What do we truly stand for? And ultimately, how are we going to be remembered? All of that is shaped by our actions day in and day out. King Jehoram's life is a pretty intense and cautionary example of this truth. So let's see how his story plays out. To really understand Jehoram's spectacular fall, you have to appreciate the incredible heights he fell from. This guy wasn't born into chaos or ruin, not at all. He was handed a strong, stable kingdom and the legacy of a really good father. You can see the two paths laid out right here. On one side, you've got his father, Jehoshaphat, a godly king who left Judah prosperous, fortified, secure. He even made sure his other sons were set up with gifts and their own fortified towns. But Jehoram, despite inheriting this amazing foundation, he chose a totally different path. He just walked away from his family's faith and embraced evil. And the big question is, why? Well, a huge piece of that puzzle lies with his wife, Athaliah. Now, she was the daughter of King Ahab of Israel, who was notoriously wicked. This marriage, which was probably arranged by Jehoshaphat for some political advantage, ended up having devastating consequences. Athaliah brought the corrupting influence of her family right into the very heart of Judah's royal court. And with that kind of poison influencing him, Jehoram's reign became, well, just brutal. As soon as he felt like his grip on the throne was secure, he immediately moved to wipe out anyone he even saw as a potential threat. And what's the very first thing he did once he was solidly established as king? He murdered his 6 brothers. These were men his own father had trusted with parts of the kingdom. But to Jehoram, they were just rivals that had to be eliminated. And the bloodshed didn't stop there. He also took out other leaders he thought were a threat. But his corruption, it went way deeper than just political paranoia. He built pagan shrines all across Judah, and he systematically led his own people into idolatry. And this is the critical point. He wasn't just a bad ruler. He was actively tearing down the very moral and religious foundation that his own father had so carefully built. You can't build a kingdom on murder and idolatry and expect it to last. It just won't work. For Jehoram, the consequences of his choices started to pile up, and that strong nation he inherited just began to fall apart at the seams. So the first domino to fall was Edom. This was a nation that had been under Judah's thumb, but they revolted and crowned their own king. Jehoram tried to put the rebellion down, but his attack completely failed, and his own army just deserted him, fleeing back to their homes. And it didn't stop there. Next up, Libnah, a fortified city inside Judah itself, also revolted. So this wasn't just an external threat anymore. His own kingdom was breaking apart from the inside out. And the scriptures tell us all of this happened because Jehoram had abandoned the Lord. And then came the final blow, an invasion. The Bible says the Lord himself stirred up the Philistines and the Arabs who marched right against Judah. They broke straight through the kingdom's defenses, leading to some truly catastrophic losses for the king. The devastation here is just absolute. The royal palace was completely plundered, his wives were captured, and all of his sons were killed except for his youngest, Ahaziah. And in this awful twist of irony, the man who murdered his brothers to secure his own dynasty had just watched his own family get destroyed. Right in the middle of all this chaos, a divine judgment was delivered. It came in the form of a letter from one of the most powerful prophets of all, Elijah, who spelled out in no uncertain terms exactly why all this was happening. Elijah's letter was direct, and it was damning. It reads, "You have not followed the good example of your father. You have been as evil as the kings of Israel, and you have even killed your own brothers, men who were better than you." Wow. The message could not have been clearer, directly connecting Jehoram's specific sins to the punishment he was receiving. But Elijah's prophecy didn't just explain the past, it spelled out Jehoram's future. The letter warned that he himself was going to suffer from a severe, incurable intestinal disease that would lead to a horrific death. And just as the prophet foretold, the prophecy came to pass. But it wasn't quick.
It was slow, it was agonizing, and it was very public. The final years of Jehoram's life were just marked by immense suffering.
Just look at this timeline of how it all went down. It was a 2-year ordeal. The disease hits. Then, for a full year, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And at the end of 2 years, exactly as Elijah had predicted, his bowels came out and he died in terrible agony. And here it is. This is perhaps the most tragic line in his entire story. After all the power, all the murder, all the rebellion against God, his end was met not with grief, but with total indifference. No one was sorry when he died. His dishonor was absolute. Unlike his ancestors, his own people refused to build a great funeral fire for him. He was even denied a burial in the royal cemetery with the other kings. His reign of wickedness ended with the ultimate shame, a commoner's grave. So, when you look at the final tally of Jehoram's life, what does it all amount to? What is the legacy of a man who was given so much, only to throw it all away on wickedness? Well, this table really says it all, doesn't it? It's like his final report card. His kingdom? Weakened and plundered. His family? Destroyed by his own actions. His personal honor? Completely non-existent. He died in pain, nobody mourned him, and he was buried in shame. It was, by every single measure, a legacy of total and complete failure. And that brings us right back to that question we started with. See, Jehoram's story is so much more than ancient history. It's a timeless warning about the power of our choices, the decisions we make every single day, the big ones and the small ones. They're the building blocks of the legacy we're going to one day leave behind. So the question for all of us is, what kind of heritage are you building?